Shalom. I'd like to say all praises due unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the elect. My name's Kanawak from GMS Toronto, doing this lesson, and it's going to be regards to this interview that Ashar, one of the brothers in the camp, he sent it in the group chat, and this is the former Prime Minister Jean Chretien. He was a former Prime Minister of Canada, and he basically says that America, the end of America has come. Right? Like, I'm gonna play it. This is for educational purposes, and we'll play the rest. And the other guy on the right is another former Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, the guy on the right. But the man on the left is former Prime Minister Jean Chretien. So let's play this.
Mr. Chretien, I'm not discouraged at all. I think that we're living a very important time in the world. It's a big shift. It is probably what I would call the beginning of the end of the American empire. And it has to come. All the empires change. So now, it's accelerating. But we are in a very good position because we have the land, we have, the best educated people in the world. You know that? And we have the tolerance that is a great value. We have the sharing that does not exist in many other countries. We have less very, very rich people per capita, but less very, very poor people too in Canada. And we have the unity that we have to in the world.
Well, this is pretty much that he says that, this is all empires fall, right? And America was a very great empire that had this portion, right? And the American Empire, the Edomite Empire, right? Of these Edomite, they are going down, and I'm gonna bring out Daniel 7, right? Let me get Jeremiah. I get Jeremiah. It's like a Jeremiah 28. Verse 8. The prophets that have been before me and before thee of old prophesied both against many countries and against great kingdoms, right? And when you read about the prophets, right, these major prophets like Daniel, when you read about different prophets, all throughout the Bible, all throughout the scriptures, and you read about Esdras and stuff, right? They were going up against great kingdoms, and and these prophets, they were faithful, right? They were true servants of the Most High, and the Most High opened up their eyes and gave them visions and made them write these things down in a book, right? In a scroll, or and basically that's why we have the composition of the 1611 Bible, the King James, right? And this is a very great thing, right? Because just like when you read about Daniel, right, where Daniel, he had the vision, of he had the basically like Nebuchadnezzar, he had a vision here, and he he wasn't able to break it down. He never there's no man to interpret the dream. And then Daniel, the Most High used Daniel and made Daniel um to like to break down the dream, right? When you read about Daniel's 2, Daniel 7, right? So I'm going to bring out Daniel 7. But it says, the prophet that have been before me and before the old prophets both against countries and against great kingdoms of war and of evil and of pestilence, right? And you know, every empire, they do have their time, like they have their time to rule, right? When you read about, the Babylonian Empire, they had that, that was a very uh vast empire, great empire, right? They had the Medes and the Persian Empire, right? Great empire, right? And the Babylonian Empire fell, and then the Persian, they rose up to power, right, for a time. And then Alexander the Great came and overthrew the Medes and the Persian Empire. And you had the Greco Empire, right? Then eventually the Greco-Roman Empire, that these Edomites were in power. All right, so let's get Psalm 75, and I started at 5. Lift not up your horn on high, speak not with a stiff neck, for promotion cometh neither from the east, nor from the west, nor from the south. But Yahweh is the judge. He putteth down one and set up another. So the Most High, he gives since because the Israelites, we disobeyed the Heavenly Father, the Most High made these other nations rise up to power, right? When you read about the book of Judges, right? You know, like when we're living in the land, right, the land of Israel, right? We were stiff necked, right? We are worshiping false god, different deities. So the Most High would set up these heathen over us, right? These Canaanites, these Philistines, these Moabites, you know, they all had their time, and basically the Most High will set up a judge over them, right? Every time when you read about the book of Judges, and basically, the Most High will set up a judge to judge our people, and the Most High would, that the Most High would free them, from their captivity, right? And then eventually, when you read about after the fall of King Saul, when King Saul lost his he lost the throne, and King sorry that prophet Samuel um anointed King David as king, right? And um King David was on the throne. um he was in he had Judah, Benjamin, Levi, and he eventually gathered up the other 10 tribes and became very mighty in the land, right? And when you read about his son, King Solomon was a very wise man. We know that King Solomon is Yahweh Shai in his past life, and we know that he was the wisest king. He was wisest king of of all men, all right? And basically King Solomon, he went off um, into idolatry, and basically the Most High told him that you're going to lose your kingdom, right? And your kingdom gonna be divided, and the kingdom was divided. You had the southern kingdom, Judah, Benjamin, Levi, and then you had the northern kingdom, the 10 tribes, right? And the kingdom was divided. There were many wars, and eventually, that's when the Assyrians came, and they overthrew the northern kingdom, and they were in captivity for a certain amount of time in the Assyrian Empire, and then when after the Assyrian Empire fell, they came to the New World. Or I'm just summarizing. You read about Second Esdras 13 and 40 that goes into that. Second Esdras 13 and 40 down, and the 10 tribes came, and then eventually, when you read about 70 AD, when after when Yahushua came, because after when Yahushua was on the scene, Judah, Benjamin was being persecuted by the Roman Empire. Right, we were being persecuted by the Roman Empire when Yahushua was on the scene, and they wanted to kill every firstborn son of the Israelite, because because they knew that the Savior was born. When you read Matthew 1, Matthew 2, right, and then eventually Yahushua, he was on the scene. Yahushua, he came on the scene, and then we like Yahushua, he prophesied that that this kingdom. Let's get Matthew. Sorry, Matthew 24. Sorry, Matthew 24 and 4. Sorry, Matthew 24 and 15. Right, this is the perilous time. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Whoso readeth, let him understand. Right, because that happened, back when Judah, Benjamin, they're in the land of Israel, right? And then the Babylonians came, and and like the Edomites helped to overthrow, you know like the Jews, the Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, and then we went into captivity, right? And then when you read about King Cyrus, uh, um, he was of the Medes and Persian empire, and basically he helped and funded the Israelites to rebuild the temple, right? So that we could worship the Most High, right? And then yeah, so let him understand that, let them which are in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him which is in the housetop not come down to the take anything out of his house. So that was 70 AD when the Romans came and they occupied Jerusalem, and you had like Masada, right? They were known as the Zealots, right? And basically they they were basically they were on high ground, right? And they were basically starved out, right? Because instead of surrendering, they they revolted to like cannibalism, you know. And then then the Romans came and killed a lot of them, and then the others were taken captive, right? And then that's when a lot of the Jews, they went into the North Africa and then eventually West Africa, right? Fleeing from the Roman persecution. Let him which is are on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house, neither let him which are in the field return back to take his clothes. Woe be unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. So that what that happened back then, and that's gonna happen now, right? So let me get back uh Psalm 75 and 7. But Yahweh is the judge, he putteth down one and set up another. For in the hand of the Lord there is a cup, and the wine is red, it is full of mixture, and he poureth out the same, but the dregs thereof, all the wicked of the earth shall rain them out. So this is going to be the ultimate, uh, the ultimate indignation and recompense, and they're going to have to drink, the affliction, right? Because the Israelites were afflicted, right, for hundreds of years. Right, so now it's gonna be your turn. You're gonna lose everything that you got, right, and you're gonna be you're gonna become a slave or servant, right, and yeah, and the Israelites under Yahweh Shai is going to rule, right. But I will declare forever. I will sing praises to the power of Jacob, and I will horn, and all the horns of the wicked also will I cut off, but the horns of the righteous shall be exalted. Yeah, so their power, their whole power structure is going to be cut off, and the Israelites is going to be on top, right? So let me go get Daniel 7 and start at 15. So the vision interpreted by the prophet Daniel, right? So Daniel 7:15. I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit, in the midst of my body, and this vision of my head troubled me, right? Because when he broke it down to King like Nebuchadnezzar, he was troubled, right? Because you know he told him, he told Nebuchadnezzar, of that vision, right? Of the head of, of it's gonna be like gold. Let's go it. Let me get it right here. Yeah, Daniel. This like the image, right? So this was the head of gold is the Babylonian Empire, right? And their symbol was the lion, which is they were into the Ishtar worship, then Persia, and the Persian and the Mede Empire is the bear, and then the Greece, refers to Alexander, you know, and the Rome. That goes into it. But I'm gonna read this. I came near unto one of them that stood by, and asked him the truth of all. So he told me and made me know the interpretation of the thing. These great beasts, which are four kings, which shall arise out of the earth. Right. So right, it goes into the Babylon Empire, the Medo Persian Empire, the Greece, right, the Greco Empire, and then the Roman Empire, right, that came up, right, and then the 10 horns, right. So but the same, but the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever and ever. So this is the future tense, right? The saints, the Israelites, are gonna take the kingdom when Yahweh Shai, which means he is deliverer or he is savior, right? He's going to take, um, he's going to he's going to save the 104,000, the 1/3, and he's going to rule um all these nations. He's gonna break their power structure down, right? And Yahweh Shai is gonna be uh is the big man, right? Because Yahweh Shai is gonna be he's gonna be he's gonna be the ultimate king, right? And he's gonna take away all the crowns, all their power. He's gonna take away all their power, man, all their crowns. Then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were iron, and his nails of brass, which devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with his feet. Right. So this is the Roman Empire. Right. When he goes into the 10 horns. Right. It's gonna go in that, that these are Roman vassal states, right? The 10 horns, right? Because they had a major stronghold throughout Europe, right? The Roman Empire, and throughout North Africa as well. And out of the 10 horns that were in his head, and the others which came up, and behold, whom 3 fell, right? So the 10 horns, it goes into the Franks, the Visigoths, the Anglo-Saxon, the Almanani, the Lombards, um, the Soviet, right? This is you have the West Germany, right, and the East Germany. So Burgundy, um, Havetu, and the Osrograph, and the Vandals, right? So the three, and behold, of them, the three, right? So the three is the Franks, and then the so-called the Saxons, right? And then the Vandals, right? Of the pagan Roman Empire, right? And out of the mouth and the mouth that spake great things, who was more, and basically also um now when he goes into the 3 horns now, right, is the French, right, the French Empire that came to America, right, and then you know the Spanish as well, that came to the had the American Empire, and then the British that came, um, whose look was more and a mouth that spake very great thing, and whose look was more stout than his fellow. Right. So this is the American. Right after you had the whole American and English war. right? The American, they overcame and established this whole American empire, all right? And behold, the same horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them. That's what they did. They they had many wars here on this land, America. um a lot of our people was being trafficked, killed, being sold on auction blocks, being sold, to the Caribbean, different islands, you know. So Jake's been catching hell since Esau, rose up to power. I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them, until the ancient days came and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High. And the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. So this is going to be now, right? When Yahweh, you know, under the commandments of the Yahweh, the Most High, is going to give his son Yahweh the green light to to take down these Edomites, this whole Edomite power structure, and you heathen, man, your time's up, man. Your time's up. So Jean Chrétien, the former prime minister of Canada, he's saying that you know we're at the end of the American empire, right? Yeah. So yeah, they're at their end. So thus he said, the four beasts shall be the four kingdoms upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break in pieces, right? So we're in the end of the like the four beasts, but now we're in the navel, right? The 10 toes, right? Which is navel. One second. This is the NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or Alliance, I mean. All right. And one second. You see that the North Atlantic Treaty Organization was established, I believe, in 1948. All right. So it was originally 10, but now they added more land, right? But this was originally supposed to be the 10. So when you look at like, this is France 1949, this is like the UK 1949, these other European states, right? And then America and Canada is a part of the NATO, right? Right, but they added all these like they added other countries to the NATO, right? But but this is the original like, this is supposed to be the original 10, but they added other countries to this whole NATO alliance, right? Which is nothing but it's a Edomite alliance, right? And their alliance will be taken down. Thus he said, the four beasts shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdom, and shall devour the whole earth. Right. That's why Job 9:24, the earth's given to the hand of the wicked. They have power. Right. From America, Canada, right, and his whole NATO alliance. Right, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces, right? So the Mosai is going to break their whole enterprise in pieces through this whole NATO, right? And the NATO is a military alliance, right? And the European, like the European Union is more like finances, but NATO is their military, right? So Yahweh Shai is going to come and he's going to destroy them. And the 10 horns out of the kingdom are the 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall rise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first. Right? So he's diverse. He has a NATO alliance, right, which was established. They had the thing too, I believe, that the Treaty of Rome. I think that was, I think, 48, right? So we're in Rome, right? This is Rome 2.0. And he shall subdue the 3 kings, right? So the Spanish, the French, and then the English, right? Or the Britons. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change time and laws, and that's what he's doing, right, with this whole daylight savings, and with his whole Greco, and his whole Greco sorry, not the Greco, um like the Julian calendar and these different calendars and stuff, and they're doing all kinds of things to trying to change, and they're doing all kinds of things on the left hand side, but and they shall be given into his hand until a time, and the dividing of times, right? So that happened when the transatlantic slave trade, and a lot of people were being brought to America, and I know a lot of people were being killed on the land, like the Gadites and stuff, right? And that time, and dividing the times, right? So we're like, so we fell, right, from it goes from 1619, and then till 1960. That's when Abba Bivens, what he came on the scene, and basically that was the time where the dry bones were being awakened, right? That's Ezekiel 37, the dry bones, right? But judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion, and to consume and to destroy it to the end. And the kingdom and the dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom and dominion, and shall serve and obey him. This is the time that the elect is going to be saved, right? Because Yahushua is going to save. He's going to save them. That goes into Wisdom of Solomon 5, all right? And that it's going to be it's so far beyond all that they look for, right? These, because the elect is going to be beamed up in the fathership, in the chariots, man, right? And they're going to be crowned, and they're going to come down on earth, and they're going to put the world back in order, right? By force and by power, right? Let's get it. Psalms. Psalms 149. I started at 4. For the Lord taketh pleasure in his people. He will beautify the meek with salvation. That's going to happen. Let the saints be joyful in glory, and let them sing aloud upon their beds. Let the high praises of Yahweh be in their mouth, and a two-edged sword in their hand. Right? So, the elect is going to, like they're gonna have like the word in their mouth, right? To execute judgment um by following you know the laws, right? And it's gonna be in us law. It's gonna be in us orally, right? And we're going to tell these heathens, things what they're supposed to do and things what they're not supposed to do. And if they don't want to comply, they're gonna be judged, like severely, and a two-edged sword in their hand to execute vengeance upon the heathen and punishment upon the people, to bind their kings with chains and their nobles with feathers of iron. Right? So, you know, all their nobles, man, what do you call it? Vladimir Putin and all these nobles, man, these Edomite nobles, and you Arab and you Moabites and all you heathen, right? You're all gonna like bow down, and you're going to because the Edomites are gonna go down hard, and they're gonna go down the hardest, but these other nations are gonna go down, but they're still gonna like they're still gonna have their lands, you know um but these Edomites are going to go down after the 1,000 years, right? To execute upon them the judgment written, this honor have ye all the same. That's what we're waiting for. So this will be my final precept, Second Ezra 6. Second Ezra's 6. Start at 7. Then answered I and said, what shall be the parting asunder of the time, or when shall be the end of the first? All right. So this is the angel Uriel speaking to Ezra's. Ezra's asking the angel, like what are these times, right? So then answered I and said, what shall be the parting asunder of the time, and when shall be the end of the first, and beginning of it that followeth? And he answered, and he said unto me, from Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau. All right, so Esau came out first, and then Jacob came out after, and basically he's gonna take his whole foundation. It was a setup like that, right? Because remember, Esau sold his birthright to Jacob, his brother, and that's why Esau, he has that perpetual hate against his brother Jacob, against the Israelites, right? And these Edomites are gonna go down hard. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is beginning with the fall. So we're seeing the end of Esau's world, and all these nations right now, they want to have this whole NWO New World Order, and they want to have everybody see hipped with this whole one world order, right? And because they're all pushing the same thing, they're all pushing this worldwide thing, right? But America, they want to try to get rid of America, which America is gonna go out hard, but they feel like after, when the smoke is gonna clear, that China is gonna rise up, or Russia, but they're all gonna lose, man. They're all gonna lose, and um, these Edomites, this whole Edomite power structure is gonna go down hard. For Esau, the end of the world, Jacob is beginning with the father. So this is the beginning of the downfall of Esau, man. You know, that's pretty much it. Uh, Hopefully, I never ranted or nothing. So like, like that's why I try to bring out some scriptures. You know, but I did quote certain scriptures. So with that, let us say our praise is due to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai Ba'ashem Rakak Wadash the Barnes Pass a great milestone. Peace and blessings to the elect. Shalom.